Hi, I'm Ray Dickey from AssociationHelpNow, South Carolina CAI, Hudson Valley CI. Thank you so much. We're going to do two programs. We're gonna run them separately. First, we're going to start with dams, and we're going to talk dams and reserves. And then I'm going to change the slideshow, and we're going to just jump over and do something much shorter on docks. This is our more laid back type of program. We're just inviting people. We used to do these recordings without an audience. I figured, why not invite the audience? We did one this morning, and it was a huge help. The audience is a huge help for me, especially when you send me questions and comments. Please send me questions and comments. I love them. I don't use people's names, so feel free to ask whatever you would like to ask, but don't ask me anything too top secret just in case I make a mistake, but I really don't think that I would. So with that being said, and by the way, not CEUs for this one. The ones that are tomorrow and the next day, you'll get CEUs, but this one's not a CEU program because I don't know if we're going to be here for a full hour, but this will convert over to a CU recorded program. So that will, oh, I'm already getting questions in. Absolutely. We will include as much as we can state regulations. We'll get there. Don't worry. With that being said, let me have our panel introduce themselves with who I see first, and that is Dawn.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dawn Becker-Durnan, and I work on behalf of Acrisure. I'm the practice leader for their community association division. Acrisure specializes in insurance all across the country as well as the world. And for me personally, I am extremely passionate about insurance, especially as it relates to docks, marine liability, and our topic today on dams.
There's nothing about insurance that you don't like. You love it.
I love it.
You love it. Matt.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matt Queasley. I'm with Reserve Advisors. I've been doing this 25 years, and I love reserves. So we do capital planning, repair and replacement projects, really from a budgeting and financial health standpoint for community associations throughout the world, including 30 countries and 50 states. So I look forward to the discussion today.
All right, so Thule is, if I mispronounced it, you'll correct me, is brand new. She doesn't really know what's going on. We had our equipment is very difficult to use, so it's not unusual for it to take quite a while. She has no idea. She just knows that she's here, and she has absolutely no idea what's going to happen. And this is not my first rodeo in this scenario, but Thule, you're very brave to be here, and you obviously know your stuff because confident people just jump on like you did. So why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Wonderful. I'm here to help. Hi, I'm Tulene Fuselier. I'm the geotechnical engineering and dams practice leader here at Weston & Sampson. We are a multidisciplinary engineering and architecture firm based in Massachusetts, but we are in the Eastern Seaboard. And dams is, what I do every day.
You said geotechnical?
Yes.
What does that actually encompass? Is it, I know it's dams, but what else?
Geotechnical is a subset of civil engineering, and it really encompasses everything soil related. So foundations, soil embankments, dams, tunnels, everything that is touching soil is geotechnical related.
I love engineering. I'm not going to do it today, but I have so many questions about tunnels. But Dawn, have you ever run into a tunnel?
I'm going to help there too.
Dawn, have you ever run into a tunnel in our industry? I've never heard of
Yes. From an insurance standpoint, of course. And we actually have quite a few communities that have tunnels where they access from one point to another underground. And so that's important from an insurance liability standpoint, of course, for reserves.
20 years, never did anything on tunnels. So now I'm all excited. I want to learn about tunnels. There's a couple video links I'll send the audience that we have. We have one that we did a while back in South Carolina. It was a huge dam, and it's a great little short interview. Dawn was there. I was complaining about how far I had to walk. Remember, Dawn?
And it was a very, very hot day.
It was very hot, very hot. And then there's another short one that is very more recent. And I thought this was a great one too. So I will send those links for those who want them, or I'll try to remember to send them to everyone anyway. If it's okay with the panel, what I did is I just set up 10 dam reserve questions or points, and then I'll go to the panel for commentary and just kind of let the slides go where they go and then add in whatever you want to add in. How's that sound? So we'll get the ball rolling. So number 10, I have, and by the way, Thule, my research is off the internet. Sometimes it's horrible, but I like to use it because a lot of our boards and managers, even though they shouldn't be, that's what they're doing. So that's why I like to go in this direction, because my knowledge level would be that of a board member or manager. All right, so the first one is the true useful life when factoring in erosion, spillway condition, and hydrology changes, not just age. Matt, does that make any sense to you?
Oh, you had come off mute. No, not really. The useful life of the useful life of the dam itself. Is that what you're asking?
True useful life when factoring in erosion, spillway condition, and hydrology changes. Not, I guess what the question is, and I abbreviate these so they fit on the slide. I think the original question was, if I remember, how do you factor in the true life of a dam? How do these things factor in? Because you just don't want to go by age, I guess, correct?
Correct. Yeah. It's all a lot of factors are going to play into that, including the initial construction of the dam as well as the use of the dam and the concern. Like, some dams are, if they fail, are going to have very little impact. Other dams, if they fail, they're going to kill people. So there's certainly different cycles in which we look at the maintenance and repair, or even major capital repair, or even replacement of a dam.
Tuli, I just pulled this terminology off the internet. Does any of it make any sense?
Well, yes, it does. You're basically asking how long do dams, what is the design life of a dam? I'm understanding that to be that question. Well-designed dams can exist for a very long time. We, on a regular basis, especially here in Massachusetts, work on dams that are 200 years old. I worked on one that was 350 years old. It's kind of amazing to think about that. But if they're well designed, they can last a very long time. What we don't do many times is maintain them, and if you're not maintaining them, then their life shortens. So they need to be well designed, well maintained, and continuously observed to make sure that there's no seepage. But if you don't see any warning signs, they can last a very long time.
We're already getting questions from the audience. I love it. Tuli, what is the biggest dam killer? I guess what causes the most damage the fastest?
What is known in the United States is mostly overtopping of dams, and that goes to your hydrology changes comment in the background, meaning that with the changes that we're seeing in climate, there is more rains happening in more micro areas, and we are seeing a lot of overtopping of dams, and that is a really bad situation for a dam, overtopping. The other thing that happens go ahead,
sorry.
The other thing that happens quite often is seepage through outlets. That is the piping that goes through a dam. Many times, when they're being constructed, the material that is used, especially in the old days, if it was corrugated metal, they start deteriorating over time. So you can have seepage around the outlet pipes. That's another very large factor of, an area where things can go wrong on a dam. But there's a whole bunch of other things that can happen, sinkholes because of seepage, and erosion, to your point, and animal burrowing. There's a long list.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a million ways. Dawn, well, I think what we'll do as far as the insurance goes, if you could throw in little insurance tidbits, don't jump into everything in between what we're talking about. My first question is, everyone know, I don't know if the audience knows, Dawn knows everything. I know Dawn's an insurance person, but there's almost nothing she's not heard of. Dawn, were you familiar with this terminology? Have you seen it before?
I am. I actually have done a couple segments on dams in the state of South Carolina with what was formerly known as DHEC, and I've also done some webinars that are online with FEMA.
Okay, wow. Quick question I want to get to, because I appreciate them coming in. Lots of questions. Thank you so much. Are we going to include state regulations as part of the dam discussion? Can I go with you on that first, Tuli? Where do state regulations fall into this? How complicated are they? How much of a role do they play?
They play a huge role. Every state's regulations are different. Up here in the Northeast, there's a certain, they're different from state to state, but essentially, in every state there is a Department of dams, dam safety. And you have to go through them and let them know what your design is and have them comment on your design before you can actually do any changes to your dam. In addition to the dam safety permits, there's a lot of, you have to go through wetland permitting and whatever permit applies environmentally, you have to go through them. And basically what happens is you put your design together and then you submit it to the permitting agencies for commenting. They make their comments and then you update your design accordingly. So permitting agencies are an essential step during the design process and any changes to the dam.
So what I'll do is I'll kind of jump around, audience, as you ask questions. If I have a slide on it, I'll just kind of jump around here. We're not going to go in numbered order. Matt, regulatory requirements, they don't play a role in reserves, do they, or am I wrong?
No, they absolutely do. As Tulene said, each district or state is going to have specific requirements that they want to see. I know where I live in Florida, we got the water management districts that are going to be looking at this and permitting these things. And when they come out to inspect the dam, if they see issues, they're certainly going to flag those. And in order to continue the operational permits, they're going to likely require capital repairs to be done if there are visible issues or evidence of potential issues.
Dawn, this came up a couple live streams ago. People were really interested in it. If you find yourselves afoul of regulatory requirements, it can get incredibly expensive. I believe you don't want to be involved with the government, especially with water. Tuli will correct me if I'm wrong. I'll go back to her in a second. But Dawn, where does insurance play in this? I'm an association. I screwed up. Oh boy.
Unfortunately, insurance isn't typically going to pay for any regulatory action that has been determined on behalf of the association. That includes penalties. And so that's very important that everybody understand the liabilities of not following state, federal, local laws and regulations.
Okay. And Tuli is a safe comment to say you really don't want to screw up, like I just said, and get involved with the government. It could be disastrous. Is that true?
Well, many dams are high hazard infrastructure hazards, right? If they go, a lot of bad things happen. So it is very, very important that you stay up to date with your regulatory observations, your visual observations that are required, and maintain the dam because they are high hazard structures.
We have done horror stories here, Tuli, where dry land is turned into wetlands, and then the associations have done something in there and been fined accordingly, if that's the right word. Is that an accurate statement?
Can you repeat the question?
You don't, as an association, you don't want to let your dry land turn into a wetland because you've changed it. Go ahead.
Absolutely not. You want to keep your dam. You want to keep your water on the right side of the dam, basically. I mean, many times, there could be people living downstream of your dam. You definitely do not want to cause hazards that can affect people's lives.
Because once you want to go back and you want to make changes or fixes, you're basically dealing in a wetland area now. While if you have never let that water expand, you would not be subject to all those wetland requirements. That's what I was getting at. Is that accurate or?
No, I mean, I think if your dam breaks and hopefully you're in a low hazard area and nobody got affected, it was just, an environmental wetland. I mean, I assume that would eventually dry and you could construct it back up, but that would be a huge problem, right? I mean, you'd be in the news.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about not properly maintaining the water behind the dam and it becoming a long-term problem and not turning into wetland, but we can just kind of move on. I made it. And by the way, Tuli, you could just say that I'm wrong. I'm wrong all the time. I don't have to be right. You guys have to be right. You have the hard job. Right, Dawn? There's some lawyers that love to tell me I'm wrong, right? The audience is just waiting for them to tell me that I'm wrong. So Dawn's nice to me though. She always goes about it in a roundabout way, but okay. Based on the dam's current condition or outdated older study assumptions, Matt, I think this was about how often do you have to get a study done?
Sure. So again, probably depends a little bit on the dam itself, but overall for communities, and I look at this again working primarily with HOAs and condominium type associations. So they're looking at typically if they have a dam, an earthen dam that they're responsible for. They also have many other components that they're looking at within their community. So we recommend a study every 3 years. But I think some of the again, higher risk dams there would be inspected more frequently than that.
We just went through this, Tuli, with the retaining walls. Remember, Don, we were trying to kind of get an answer on how often you should inspect a dam. Tuli, it's a tough one because there's different kinds of dams, but can you teach us a little bit about what is the philosophy on these inspections? How often?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about what it is typically, but again, it changes from state to state. But typically they are every 2 years for high hazard dams, meaning that if your dam was to let go, people could drown, right? So those are high hazard dams. There is the middle level significant hazard dams. They are inspected every 5 years. That means that if it was to let go, there will be property damage, but no life loss. And then there is the low hazard dams where if it was to let go, there is, not much property damage and, definitely no loss of life. So and those are inspected every 10 years. So 10 years, 5 years, 2 years. And then if the engineer who's inspecting your dam sees a warning sign, such as seepage at the toe, such as some sort of movement, then they go to a, every 6-month inspection cycle.
So I have a little quick thing here. I want to test Dawn because she does know everything about everything. I realize I forgot to write down the right answers. I did this such a long time. I don't know what the right answer is. So either Matt or Tulin will depend on, and they may not be able to give you the right answer based on my limited amount of information I give it, but let's give it a try anyway. Dawn, the earliest warning sign of a potential internal erosion, is it A, downstream toe seepage, or crest vegetation?
Well, I'm going to be upfront. I am not versed in this, so I'm going to go with crest vegetation, though. And I'm hoping that's the correct answer.
All right, I actually do have the answer, and Tuli, you could tell me. I'll start with you. Have it right. I had seepage in this location as a classic early indicator of piping, a serious internal erosion mechanism. What can you offer me commentary on this?
Yes. So when we build dams, or in the United States, we don't really build new dams, but these days we rehabilitate dams. But basically what happens, there is water on one side of the dam, right? You kind of try to estimate where does the water come out at the end, because over time that water will eventually get to the toe and you will be able to see it the longer it stays. But basically sometimes the water seepage becomes so high that what we call internal erosion happens. So you don't really see what's going on inside the dam, and this is a very dangerous situation where the flow is so high that it starts to pick up soil particles and literally starts eroding the dam from the inside. I've seen a situation, for example, we saw one of these things and a crayfish just popped up on the dry side of the dam. That just basically means that, when the fish are on the wrong side of the dam, it's not a good situation. But basically, it's literally a pathway, a little tunnel that opens from the dam, and it starts eating the dam from the inside. And it's what we call internal erosion. It's very dangerous for the dam, which is why when you see seepage, immediately you go to a warning sign, not necessarily you go to watching, you're watching the condition develop, because many times they do seep. But what we want to do is then rehabilitate the seepage situation where you can put a seepage blanket over it so that the likelihood of an internal erosion happening gets reduced.
What is the toe? People are asking.
Oh, the toe is a dry side. If you're thinking about an embankment, the toe is the dry side of like at the bottom of the slope. So you just imagine if you have an embankment and there's water on this side, water eventually goes and ends up at the toe.
You really know your dams. That is.
Yeah, that was a far better explanation than I could have done.
Holy mackerel! I just realized too, you have a very nerve-wracking job. I realize it's
It is. It is. It can get very stressful, especially in an emergency situation. You know, I've been through 4 emergency situations, and it's never good. It's never good to be in.
I was thinking like people are asking you if something's safe, but you can't really see what's going on in there. That's what I was thinking about.
Correct.
And it could be
Correct.
like a really dangerous situation. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I have been in situations where, you know, you call the fire chief and you're thinking about, should we evacuate or should we not evacuate? Are we there yet? You know, there are some, you know, stressful decisions that are made during an emergency situation.
Dawn has it so easy. She's just processing insurance referrals all day. So she's just rolling.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
you know, the most important thing about insurance is actually prevention and mitigation. And I said it earlier in today's presentation that what we cannot insure, we reserve for.
Tuli, you'll learn something. Dawn could segue insurance into anything. Anything. She's an expert. Sometimes we test her on it. She never fails. Never fails. Awesome.
Well, I can't, don't test me on engineering type situations.
Okay. Well,
insurance, yes.
These items include immediate inspection, Matt, seepage, settlement, and animal burrows.
Right. That seepage, on the previous slide, you had piping there. That's something we see with a lot of stormwater is, and I think Tulin kind of mentioned it before, where the water starts to kind of make its own pipe in the soil, and that can be a very dangerous situation. And so whether that's just between 2 ponds or with a dam, something that you really want to keep an eye on and address before it becomes a major issue. And again, the sooner you take care of it, the better.
I think this is going to be a legal question. I'll throw it out there anyway. If the association has sub-associations in the community, would the association be liable for the dams within those sub-associations? Also, who would be responsible for a reserve study of the dams? Matt, I know that's kind of a legal one, but do you want to touch any part of that? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean, the declaration of the association, the plat, should determine who is the owner of the dam, and they would be the one that would be responsible for maintenance and inspection and the reserve study of all of that. So most cases, what I'm seeing, it's like the master association, because the dam is impacting multiple sub-associations, but it could be different on a individual case.
Now, I also want to add, we also frequently see lake associations that are a part to the master and or part to the association, where they're specifically putting the responsibility to insure and to maintain all of that onto a lake association. I actually prefer to see that personally from an insurance perspective. Well, yes, we have to have more insurance for all the entities, but you are giving separate limits to each entity, and it grows the pot of insurance that is available.
Tuli, earthen dams, what's the best way to preserve them? That's
maintain them. Yeah, the best way to preserve them is to maintain them. Cut all trees. Somehow people think that trees actually keep the dam safe. They don't. You have to cut all trees within 20 feet of the dam toe, the dam abutment, the edges of the dam. Just cut them all out, and then start observing. Keep the dams. Keep grass growing on them. Grass is important. Definitely do periodic inspections. Take a dam engineer with you, and have them look for animal burrows or rutting in an area. The rutting could be from a car or maybe a sinkhole starting. Right, somebody who knows what to look for will be able to tell you the condition of the dam and make recommendations for any maintenance. Keep up your dams. That's basically the best way to keep them working for a very long time.
I mean, if I was a board member or a manager and there was a dam, I would assume I would want regular inspections. It seems like a huge responsibility. It's not like the sidewalk, right? Where if your sidewalk
correct, yes,
cracks or something. Okay. Number 7, funding set aside for emergency dam repairs, given the consequences of unexpected failures. Can you do that, Matt? Could you rephrase it so it makes sense and then provide the answer?
Yeah, I mean, you can, I think in most cases, you can always save for anything. An association could set aside funds for any type of rainy day. This is a very difficult one to predict. First of all, the amount and need for unexpected failures. But I think when you get that inspection program going, you're going to start to realize your problem areas. And I think one of the biggest maintenance expenses that I've seen with dams is like riprap and stabilization of areas that maybe maybe it's a shoreline where it's eroding, or spillway areas. Beyond the normal maintenance of keeping the grass growing and the trees out of there, could be some augmentation of the slopes of the wrap of it, or the spillway work. So I don't think there's anything that's really unexpected when you have a good maintenance program going, and so I wouldn't put a lot of funds aside for a disaster if you're maintaining it on a normal basis, and thinking about some of those things that may need to be done that raise above the everyday maintenance but are more capital intensive, like riprap placement, or perhaps spillway augmentation, or even the inlet and outlet structures themselves, the gate, the valves, and things like that, there would need replacement. So you can schedule all those things individually and hopefully not have any unexpected failures, but good to save for all those other items.
Truly, I'm assuming that a dam looks like a dam, right? I just thought of this. Is it easy to be mistaken? I'm making an assumption here that I know what a dam looks like. Is it obvious, or are we mistaken?
Sometimes, very good point. Sometimes it is not obvious. Sometimes people don't know that they have a dam on their property, which is, it's interesting, because sometimes the dam is small and it looks like, a part of nature, and it's small enough where, it's holding back water, but it's not a huge amount of water. And people many times don't know that they own a dam. When we say dam, we immediately think of the big dams, but they can be, 6 feet tall, and many times people don't even know that there was a dam there, and they've been living there for 20 years. So it happens.
Dawn's nodding her head like she has seen.
Well, I am, because we recently just looked at a lake association, and we have a duality of owners, because we have an association that reports to them, and they own half the lake, but there's not true ownership. So who's maintaining it? And they weren't aware that the other half of the ownership had a dam, and not only a dam, but a high hazard dam. And so it's important to know the classification of the dam: low, intermediate, or high hazard.
Top three most likely failure modes. And I don't think you can answer this. The cost range to repair. All right. Can you do the 3 most likely causes of failure, Tulin, or is that unfair to ask you?
It's not unfair. So as I said, overtopping is one. So definitely do a H&H analysis, hydrology analysis. Down piping is another. It's usually seepage that you see at the toe, and uncontrolled seepage is another failure mode, and failure through outlets. Those are, I would say, the 3 main failure modes I have seen. Cost range is completely dependent on, what type of and what size of dam we're talking about. I mean, it can be 100,000. It can be 5 million. It's, it totally is dam dependent.
No matter what, Matt,
Probably not going to be
a lot.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be for a dam of any size. It's probably not going to be much less than 100,000. It's going to be big expenses when we have those failures.
Correct.
Oh boy.
I do want to talk about this really quickly, because this is important. When we do have an emergency and we don't have an engineering firm that we've already been intimately familiar with and knows our dam, that can be a real challenge. And I speak from the aspect of having to fix the dam and the contracts that are involved. So most recently, I had a client with a dam failure who hired an engineer and a contractor to redo the dam. Unfortunately, due to design imperfections, the dam immediately failed. And we're speaking of a project that was over $500,000. So the question comes back to us, what insurance is available? Well, that is really going to go back to the contract. And we also recommend not only insurance, but performance bonds. And that's really because insurance is not going to be available in those failures.
That's terrible that dams fail. I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be something that would be allowable. It's like almost letting a building collapse or something, I guess. But Tulin, you don't, I guess dams fail. There's people out there that don't know what they're doing, I guess, and don't do a good job.
They don't maintain them. Maintenance is key, basically, and maintenance costs money. And
now, Tulin and Matt, you also work with an individual from the association who is going to be listed on the EAP, or the emergency action plan, especially for a high hazard dam. And that individual should have some knowledge from you, right, as to who to call, when to call, and they're going to follow a protocol for that. You
Absolutely.
both helped develop that, correct, with the association?
Go ahead, Tulin.
Well,
Go ahead.
we help develop them all the time. I don't know if we have specifically developed it for this association, but we write emergency action plans all the time. And for the listeners who don't know what that is, it's basically hydrologic analysis, hydrologic study, where you assume based on NOAA knowledge, how much does it rain in the area. You apply the rain, and then you see what is the water level that your dam, that your reservoir rises to. First, you can find out if your dam overtops, and second, in the case of failure, even in a sunny day failure, who gets affected? So what is the downstream area that floods? And it's really based on those studies. You have a little flood path, and you kind of figure out these are the areas that are going to see, I don't know, more than 2 feet of water, and what are the addresses of those homes. And in an emergency, these are the people that we have to evacuate. So an emergency action plan basically tells you the steps as to who to contact, when to contact them, who owns the dam, who's the engineer that knows the dam. To Dawn's point, it's very important that there is an engineer who has history with the dam and kind of knows, what the work, what type of work has taken place on the dam.
Matt, I kind of interrupted you there for a second. Did we get?
No, I was going to say we don't get involved in the emergency action plans, but I'm glad that you brought that up, because somebody that knows how the dam operates and how to open up the spillway if need be, or to make the changes, or in the case of a heavy rainfall, prepare for that, adjust the water levels, etc.
Truly, let me ask you something. Have you ever been like on vacation and you've gotten a phone call that the dam was going to break and like cause millions of lives lost, and they flew like an Army helicopter out to you because you were the only person that could possibly fix the dam, and then the Army helicopter picks you up, and then you swoop in to save the day because you're the only person that knows about that dam? Has that ever happened? Because I've seen that in the movies a lot, and I want to know if that's ever happened to you in real life.
Oh, that does sound like a movie scenario. No, I am not that important. However, I have been part of an evacuation. I mean, not an evacuation, an emergency situation, Christmas Eve. So for whatever reason, these seem to happen either on Friday nights or on Christmas Eve, or when people are on vacation. They do happen. One of my emergencies happened to be a federally owned, not federally, but state-owned dam, and we had to alert, MassDOT, and they all came to help us, and everything was fine at the end. Nobody got hurt, and it was just a really big effort on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. But that's it. So no, I've never been on a helicopter in my life.
That's pretty close. It's almost like movie-ish.
It was pretty intense. Yes.
I was kind of thinking of a movie here, listening to you guys talk and everything and stuff and everything. So, all right, well, let us know.
They happen more often than you imagine, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other person is always like an ex-spouse or something, right? That's in charge, and there's always that in the movie. Dawn, I'm sorry, there's no insurance heroes. There's a lot of.
There actually is, because insurance downstream is extremely important. There is a whole list. There's a dam database, right? There's a national dam database. Go online. There's a map. Put your address in and find out where that dam is located in close proximity to your property. And although you may not be part of their plan, you should have a plan in the event that you are in that path of inundation. And it is also important, you may not be in a flood zone that requires you to carry flood insurance. But if you are in that path of inundation, you will be very sorry if you do not have flood insurance. So seriously consider that.
But no one has ever called an insurance agent to save the day. Matt and Tuli could be called at any moment to keep a 100-foot dam from breaking and ruining lives, and they have to
I
be
come
flown
with
to
the
the scene
money.
to save. They have to be flown to the scene to save the day, and they have to do something dangerous and rappel inside the dam to fix it because they're the only ones that can. Anyway, okay, moving on. I think we already touched upon current rainfall patterns and storm frequency. Dam design capacity still adequate. That would be part of the reports, right? That would be kind of, I'm curious, do you take climate change into reserve studies, Matt, or not really too far out, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, to the extent that it's changed already, yes, and we're starting to see, seeing like higher water level or something, yes, we would take that into account. Difficult to predict what's going to happen in the future, but certainly something you want to consider. And as Tulene mentioned, the hydrology studies, I think, would give you a good idea of where it is today.
Dawn has so many fans. They're like, oh, Dawn's my hero. Okay. Dawn could save the day too. All
No,
right.
again, that's only because with insurance, we are transferring financial risk. So I come with the money.
Okay. Number 3, we're almost done. Hidden components, outlets, pipes, spillways, riprap, which maybe Matt can explain to me what that is really quickly. Tow drains, valves, and erosion. Those are all things, Matt, that need to be looked at by a reserve engineer specialist because you gotta know about it.
Well, I would say your dam specialist is what you want to inspect is, again, especially in a high risk dam, you're going to want a separate dam inspection. It's not the same as a reserve study, but that can inform the reserve study on how much to set aside for those potential components that might need repair or replacement over the years. I mentioned riprap. It's rock. It's just like you see on the shoreline of some ponds or on a seawall or something. It just breaks up the wave action or pressure from wind and things on the shoreline to keep it stabilized and in place.
Okay, we're down to number 2. Thule, what did the board say to the engineer before he gave his dam report? He said, keep it brief. We don't want this to spill over. See? Okay. All right. Engineers are usually pretty easy to entertain, but okay. You guys must be a little bit of a tougher crowd. Dawn loves when there's insurance jokes. She's all over them. You can't do enough of them. Okay. Are there a lot of engineer jokes, Thule? Like lawyers?
I don't think so.
Okay, I don't think so either.
There's a lot of lawyers.
We don't have that good humor.
The light bulb.
Matt, why did I write this? Greatest risk reduction per dollar, one dam related investment. Does that make any sense to you?
Maybe just how, and goes back to pound of prevention, or an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as Tulene kind of mentioned earlier. Maintenance is going to, that those expenses, the inspections that take place are going to cost money. The smaller repairs to your augmentation of the spillway or whatever it might be is going to cost some money, but it's going to be much less than the major reconstruction in the event of a catastrophic failure. So absolutely good investments to keep an eye, just like all of our common elements in our association. We want to keep an eye on them before they become bigger issues. And I just looked up the database. I did not know this existed, Don. So thank you for that. Over 90,000 dams inventoried on the website that you said there. So that's pretty cool. Tulene probably knew that.
The last one was inspection frequencies, which we've already went over. I think we did cover that already. With that being said, boy, we spent a lot of time on this. I was really surprised. That went by quick. Closing thoughts. Dawn.
Insurance is extremely difficult to obtain if you have a high hazard dam. And that is reality. There are far and few between carriers that want to deal with that. And it is so important that you have your inspections, because if I am going to provide you with quotes, we're going to want to know all about the dam, including what type is it, earthen, all of that, how old it is. But most importantly, with your reserve studies specialist, have you incorporated that into your plan? If not, we often can see a D&O claim or a general liability claim that surfaces later on because there will be allegations that the board breached their fiduciary duty due to a special assessment or any other type of cost that come up from that.
Thule, anything we didn't mention? Closing thoughts, closing advice.
No, I'm going to repeat what Dawn said. Maintain your dams. Get an engineer, have them inspected, and between inspections, if you own the dam, walk it yourself every so often, and see if you see anything different. Always good to keep an eye on your dams.
Matt, last word.
Yeah, that just makes me think there's a lot of people in your community that probably don't even know they are owning a dam. And even some of you board members may not realize that. It's a good point, Dawn. I think you said earlier, like these dams can look like just natural land or a shoreline embankment. There's
Dirt.
more there. There's
Just
more
looks
there.
like
So
dirt.
yeah, exactly. And they're grassed over, so you don't really notice it, but they could be a big liability there. So thanks for taking the time to learn a little bit more about them, and hopefully, if you have one, sounds like Tulene is absolutely the expert in this area and would be, I'm sure, happy to help.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. All right. So we ended up going to an hour on this. Do you guys want to do docs, or do you want to split and then I could reschedule it? Truly, I know docs isn't your thing, and I don't want to hold you up, or it's up to you. Matt, or how about you, Tuli?
I'm fine with time. I don't know what we want to talk about with docs. There's so many different types.
It's short. I have it set up to be short.
Okay.
Do you want to stay, Tuli, or do you want to go?
Yeah, I can stay. I mean, I had the hour. I mean, I'm
Good.
if there's any questions, maybe I can. I mean, we work on docs too. Just it's not as big of a subject as dams, I think.
Okay, excellent. Dawn, I know you have nothing to do. I mean, you're usually.
Yeah, no. I actually, docs is another marine liability. We have, there's so
Dawn,
many
don't start. I'm not
associations. I know that I'm not
ready
going
yet
on,
to
but
start the
I
program.
like docs. It's a good topic.
Truly, Dawn gets so excited,
I do. I
so
can't
excited
control
about
myself.
insurance. Sometimes I just have to slow her down. She can't wait. She can't
Can't
wait.
stop.
Okay. Hi. By the way, audience, I'm going to start over because I'm going to split this possibly. Hi, Ray Dickey from AssociationHelpNow, South Carolina CAI and Hudson Valley CAI. Thank you so much for being here today. Our topic is going to be 5 complex doc reserve questions that would confuse Albert Einstein. I think they're extremely hard. Now our panel's nervous, but we'll see. Let's start with introducing our panel with who I see first, and that is Dawn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dawn Becker-Durnan. I'm a community insurance risk management specialist. I'm a licensed property and casualty insurance agent, and I work on behalf of Acroshore as their practice leader for community associations. Acroshore provides insurance all across the country as well as internationally. I currently serve on the board of directors for CAI South Carolina, and I am extremely passionate about insurance.
Matt.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt Queasley. I'm with Reserve Advisors. I've been doing reserve studies for about 25 years. I'm a professional engineer and a reserve specialist, and also work throughout the country with community associations. We actually work in 30 countries. So our firm is the largest global provider of reserve studies, and it's my passion, and my career is dedicated to it. And I also serve on my condominium board of directors for the last decade plus. So I'm passionate, and thank you for all the board members out there for your service.
Tuli.
Hi, my name is Tulene Fuselier. I am a geotechnical engineering and dam safety practice leader here at Weston & Sampson. We are a multidisciplinary engineering company up and down the East Coast. I am, however, located here in Massachusetts today.
Tulene was with our previous live stream, and it was the first time, and she had no idea what was going on because we didn't really give her any time. And now she thinks that this one's even worse because we're just like, just when she thought the first one wasn't strange enough, not having any idea what's going on, to run into this one now with 5 complex reserves. She's probably like, what the heck is this guy? Confused Einstein. What the heck is this about? I just saw your face and you're like, oh, I couldn't believe this could get worse. Okay. You're a good sport and you're very confident to say a second time. So thank you. Matt, what I did is I asked ChatGPT for the 5 most complex reserve questions. It's probably not going to mean anything to me. Probably not. Well, Dawn knows everything. So, and she'll fake it even if she doesn't really know it, but we'll see. All right. So Matt, I'm going to start off with you. And I don't know if you guys can see it that well, but I'm going to read it. How does a model, and obviously I want you guys to add commentary that our audience could use also. This is just for a fun way to get through 5 points here. How does a model separate observable, I can't pronounce it. Dawn, can you see it?
Deterioration.
Deterioration from, you read it, Matt. Can you see it?
Yeah, it's a doozy there. How to separate observable deterioration from probabilistic deterioration underwater rot, internal corrosion, fastener fatigue, and how do those uncertainty ranges affect recommended funding level?
First question, Matt, does the question make sense?
I think it's overthinking it. No, I think
We'll simplify it for the
observable.
audience so they get a learning.
So here's what I would, yeah, I think what we look at when we do reserve, I think it's getting at reserve funding levels. How much do you save for a dock in this case, and how much do you base it off of what's likely to happen versus what you're seeing is happening? That's what I would say, observable deterioration versus what a model might suggest things would happen. And I think it's a great thing to think about is that not all docks are going to behave the same way. Not all are going to have the same initial construction, same exposure, same use, the same maintenance levels. And so you have to observe the components before you can really make a recommendation on replacement life or replacement timing or replacement cost or repair costs. You can't just plug in a model and say all docks are going to last X number of years.
Okay, thank you. You did a great job. Truly, anything to add to that?
I agree. I think it's a little bit of a complicated question. I think, you know, going and maintaining and looking at your dock and seeing, you know, what kind of deterioration there is just to assess its condition is very important. But I don't know if that's done.
Yes, it's overcomplicated. Note the name of my 5 complex docks.
Now I can see.
Yes, you guys caught on. It's overcomplicated questions. I'm going to throw the questions to you, and you guys are going to do what you just did. You're going to read it, and then you're going to simplify it so the audience can actually learn something from it. Dawn, how many of these have I done? 500? I got to twist it up a little bit now and then. More. Okay. Dawn, give us a little bit of insurance tidbit. Don't give it all of it because we want to break it up, but tell us something about insurance and docks.
Ooh, we want to know whether your docks are encapsulated. Is that intriguing? We want to know about your pilings. We want to know about wave wash. So there's a lot of good details about docks from a marine liability perspective and for marine physical damage that we are really going to dive deep into.
What did you call it? Encapsulate? What does that mean?
Well, we have floating docks, and some floating docks systems will use an encapsulation. It's essentially almost like a styrofoam system that could be underneath the dock. And we want to make sure that that has been inspected, that it's going to be buoyant and that it's going to sustain. So we ask all those questions. We want to know we want your firstborn child, essentially.
Yeah, I meant we'll save docks and insurance for another one because I have like 1,000 questions. All right. Tulin, can you do this one for me? Can you see it or is it too hard? I could give it a try.
What hydrodynamic forces, wave energy, boat wake loading, uplift forces during storms are assumed when assigning remaining useful life, and how would it change in those assumptions after the replacement timeline?
Alter the replacement timeline. You can't really see it. All right. Does that question make any sense to you?
I mean, a little bit, I suppose. So you're asking, as the dock ages, you know, do the wave forces change? Is that the question?
Is that computed into the? We'll go to Matt on this too, mostly, but it's so complex. I guess what I'm getting at is doing a reserve study on a dock, and I'm going to try to push the point that you want to use a company that knows what they're doing, because it seems outside factors like maybe it's in a wake zone, but maybe people don't obey the wake zone very well, and it could cause a lot of damage to the dam. So this was like the whole point of this kind of question. Tuli, does that make a little bit more sense, Tulin, a little bit more now?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I mean, usually when a dock is designed, you know, it's designed for certain amount of wave load or, but, you know, over time, if you have, I don't know, something that was built just offshore that can hit your dock, you know, it's always good to, I guess, go back every so often and to see if anything has changed with respect to your original dock design.
Man, I thought this was interesting because I could see somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, not even factoring in things like boat wake zones.
Yeah, well, it should be factored into the initial design, right? And the grade of the dock that you're using is going to be hopefully applicable for the location that it's in. And so that's going to be part of, just like any component that we look at, the initial materials and construction and workmanship and method in which it was installed is going to impact its remaining useful life. So this one makes sense. I don't think that those changes, I don't think that those things we would expect are going to change dramatically. For example, uplift forces during storms, there's a certain design that was probably considered when they designed it, and the storm certainly could create damage, but hopefully you've got your docks insured if for some reason the storm dislodged or broke the docks in some way. I think one of the things I think about to this question and the previous question is timeline. Yes, sometimes the cost is not impacted by these things. Of course, the cost would be impacted by the design, but the cost is going to be typically what you plan for is replacement in like kind with what you have.
All right, excellent. Dawn, can you read this one? There's two more after this one.
You want me to read this one?
Yeah.
Okay. How are normalizing cost projections for dock replacements given the volatility in lumber, composite, steel, and marine grade hardware? And what escalation model is using for marine inflation versus general inflation?
Does that make any sense? I'll go with Matt. Is there anything you could take away from that?
I guess, yeah, just the first part, how are normalizing cost projections? Maybe how are we normalizing cost projections? Is that what you're asking? So we look at historical rates, and I think we can look at this for maybe across the board here. Yeah, we look at historical rates. When you're doing a reserve planning, you're typically planning out 30 years in the future. And so no one has a crystal ball to say what the inflation is going to be in 30 years. The volatility that we see now, of course, is likely to continue. There'll be some years where it's high inflation, some years where it's lower inflation. So we just look back historically at data, that's published data on what these costs have done over the last 30 years, and I typically just apply that to the next 30 years. We don't try to overthink it.
Tulin, what would you think if a board member came to you with these questions? Absolutely ridiculous. Do you ever get board members that try to overcomplicate things and start asking you complex damn questions that they obviously just read on the internet before you meet with them? I went with dams because that's your area of expertise.
Yes, I actually, it's funny. I equate it to like somebody going to the doctor and reading the internet first and then asking the doctor questions. And, I do that myself. So it's the, people go onto the internet and, form an opinion and ask the question. Yeah, it's very normal and it's very acceptable.
Oh, thank you, audience. You're saving me with a reasonable question. Thank you. Hold on. Let me ask the question, Dawn, and then I'll jump over to you. Okay. I'm sorry. How about temperature changes such as the very cold weather we are currently having, such as freezing bays, etc.? Matt, is that something you compute into reserves? Because you could have some anomaly happen and cause a lot of damage.
No, I mean, not typically something we're computing into the reserves. Most, when we expect freezing bays or lakes, a lot of those are removing. Where I grew up north, you always removed your docks in the wintertime. When you knew the lake was going to freeze, because it would destroy your dock if you left it in for one winter or one freeze cycle for that matter. Here in Florida, we're never removing our docks, so I think it's just that's more of a maintenance decision. And if you think it's going to freeze, what you can do to raise or protect the dock from becoming entangled in ice.
Dawn.
I think it's really important that, especially for reserving, that we also consider, do we have contractors that are specialized in marine construction? Because the one thing that my board members tell me is that they can't find dock builders or pile drivers. They are just really non-existent, and it's not an industry that people are getting into, and it's a very expensive industry to be in as well.
Why wouldn't anybody get into it? If it's expensive, it sounds awesome. I guess maybe the insurance costs have a business related to it. What's the problem with it, Matt? Why aren't people getting into it?
Just like a lot of the technical trades, it's outdoor work, it's hard work, and it takes training and expertise, and people aren't going into the trades as much as they used to, right?
Okay.
So I will tell you that I think it's difficult to put into reserves because it also depends upon the labor market, right? As far as our rebuild. So if you're in a very rural area, but you have a very substantial marina with docks and boat slips, that is going to be something you may want to sit down with your reserve specialist and say, perhaps we need to make some considerations for the economics around our community, which certainly impacts the inflationary value of our replacement.
Boy, docks and dams are a pain in the neck. Okay. All right.
Expensive.
Why don't
Yeah,
you,
good point, Don.
can you read this one, Tulin?
Does a reserve analysis account for soil, sediment, and seabed conditions beneath each piling? And if so, how does integrated geotechnical uncertainty factor into the life cycle forecast?
Can you
Is
simplify
that
that?
a reserve analysis? Maybe that's a question for Matt. I can't.
Yeah, the simple answer there is no. That's well beyond what we would model for a reserve analysis.
Okay, excellent. One more. Dawn, you would love if I did this. Honestly, like came up with super ridiculously wordy insurance questions that you could answer. You love
Well,
technical
then you would
insurance.
just sound like every other attorney.
Well, that's true. Oh, I wish we had an attorney on here so we could make fun of them. They would absolutely love this. Okay, last one. I will try to do this one, even though my pronunciation is terrible. At what point do partial component replacements, decking, stringers, hardware, become economically irrational compared to full structural replacement? And what are the break-even analysis that supports a recommendation? Matt, you're nodding your head like this makes sense. Could you please?
This one actually makes sense, Ray. Yes, thanks for
Oh,
the
can you redo
here.
the question? Because I don't even understand what I just read.
Well, I think this applies to a lot of common elements. At what point does it make better sense to replace versus repair the component? And we do what we call a cost of ownership analysis to help figure this out. So let's just say the docks have a 20-year useful life, and for real simple purposes, let's say they're $200,000. So for each year, we've got $10,000 of cost to own that dock. It's a $10,000 per year, and you replace it at the end of 20 years, and it's $200,000, but you're setting aside $10,000 per year. If you're starting to conduct repairs that are more than $10,000 per year, and that don't extend the life at all, anything beyond a year, then that's kind of the break-even point where I'd say that might be not economically viable to replace it. Now, there are cases on a dock specifically where there are certain components of the dock that are designed to be replaced more frequently, and that in order to say use the docks, we have to replace the bumpers every few years, and that's going to have to be done. And so that kind of takes its own cost analysis of repair the bumper versus replace the bumper. But that's how I would break it down to come up with a break-even analysis supporting replacement versus repair.
Tulin looks like I just wasted 10 minutes, 15 minutes of my life. I could be having a coffee right now. These are ridiculous.
I'm
but anyway,
learning as we go.
I actually think the questions worked out pretty fine. Matt, you did a great job actually turning them into reserve questions. So I appreciate you kind of playing along with that. All right, let's do closing thoughts. And Dawn, obviously we could do a full insurance segment on, I honestly have a lot of insurance questions about docks, but because things could float away, things could float into. There's like
We didn't even get into bumbershoot or wharfingers or any of those crazy names for insurance programs.
I'm sorry. You want to talk after we're done with the live stream? Do you want to call me and tell me about it so you can get it out of your system?
One day we'll talk about it.
Okay. Well, maybe over dinner. Okay. All right. Tulin, closing thoughts. We kind of threw you for a loop on this one, I know.
Yes, just like anything, if you own a structure, you have to maintain it. Just walk through it every so often and see what it's doing. Hire an engineer, have him take a look at it, and just so you know what your property is doing.
Dawn, the engineers with the maintaining on it, that's all they want to. Oh, maintain.
Well, that's what I want them to do.
Yeah, I know.
Insurance.
It seems so obvious. Maintain. No, obviously I'm joking because no one ever listens, and that's how. Think how many things would be simpler in life. Before I let Matt have closing thoughts, Tulin, you said in the previous live stream that you are involved with tunnels. Will you please come? Dawn said that some associations have tunnels. I am so interested in tunnels and like how you can make one and keep it from collapsing. You know all about that, right?
Yes. happy to jump on anytime.
That's what I wanted to hear. Dawn and I will be back, and I would just have 1,000 questions about tunnels. It's very exciting. All right, Matt, closing thoughts on complex dock reserve components and situations and items.
So one of the things we didn't talk about much, but I want to touch on real quick, is the stuff that you don't see when you look at your docks can be some of the biggest issues. So under what Don mentioned briefly, the floating portions of it, the pilings. Often with docks, we have pilings in the ground, and that's where, you know, that analysis you talked about, like a geotechnical analysis of it. That's not what a reserve study does, but it might be important to do that if you have a large liability out there. And also safety with docks. You know, the electrical that runs on docks can really create a hazard for folks. So that's, again, one you'd want to inspect regularly and try to keep people from avoiding getting, you know, electrocuted by being in their docks if there's an electrical short or ground fault.
Oh boy, Dawn would have loved to jump all over that. That would have been a whole insurance segment. I want to thank you guys for being here so much. Tulin, I appreciate you kind of playing along with us today. Thank you for just jumping on. And Dawn and Matt, thank you as always. And I hope to see everybody else soon. Bye, everybody. Now you guys can log off, by the way. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, nice to meet you, Tulin. See you later, Matt. Always great to
Nice
see you.
meeting
Yeah, always a pleasure. Take care,
All right.
guys.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for doing.